नमस्कार. अ, ज्ञानप्रबोधिनी माजी विद्यार्थी गटाच्या अ, इमर्जिंग टेक्नॉलॉजी स्पेशल इंटरेस्ट ग्रुपच्या 2021च्या या पहिल्या अ, सत्रामध्ये आणि पहिल्या पब्लिक कार्यक्रमामध्ये सगळ्यांचं स्वागत आहे. अ, आज आपण आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजन्स एंड मशीन लर्निंग या विषयावरती ऐकणार आहोत, विचार करणार आहोत, चर्चा करणार आहोत. त्या याचं स्वरूप असं असेल, की सुरुवातीला ओमकार गुर्जर ओळख करून देईल आपल्या वक्त्यांची आणि मग राहुल सुदामे त्यांचं साधारणपणे 1 तासाभराचं प्रेझेंटेशन आहे आणि आपल्याकडे एक अर्ध्या तास चर्चेकरता आणि प्रश्नोत्तरांकरता वेळ असेल. अ, आपण सेशन रेकॉर्ड करत आहोत. ते आपण कुठेतरी पब्लिश करू. आता अनम्यूट करायला मी ऑन केलेलं नाहीये, पण चॅटवर प्रश्न विचारू शकता. आणि मग नंतर प्रेझेंटेशन झालं, की अनम्यूटची सोय करून ठेवेन. इमर्जिंग टेक्नॉलॉजी गटाने असं यावर्षी प्लॅन केलंय, की दर महिन्याला एक वेगवेगळ्या 12 टेक्नॉलॉजीजवरती अशा प्रकारची सेशन्स घ्यायची. त्याच्यामधून त्या टेक्नॉलॉजीविषयी माहिती सर्वांपर्यंत पोहोचेल आणि त्याविषयी काही विचार आणि काही दिशा आपण विचार करू शकू त्याचा एक गट म्हणून. तर एवढं बोलून मी थांबतो आणि ओंकारला विनंती करतो, की त्यांनी सुरुवात करावी, ओळख करून द्यावी.
Thanks, Rahul, for setting up this context सगळ्याचं.
जस्ट
आणि या
स्ट्रीम होत नाहीये.
अ,
YouTubeला स्ट्रीम होत नाहीये.
मी बघतो ते तू
करूया सुरू पण.
हो ओंकार, करा सुरू करा.
हां, ओके. थँक्स राहुल फॉर सेटिंग अप द कॉन्टेक्स्ट. बेसिक बॅकग्राऊंड सगळ्यांना एसपीजीची आहेच आहे, त्यामुळे त्याच्यात फारसा वेळ न घालता मी डायरेक्टली आपल्या वक्त्यांच्या ओळख करून याकडे येतो. वी आर रिअली हॅपी आज राहुल सुदामे, who is a delivery partner and agile coach at Persistence System, is a speaker for this today's topic. Before coming to IT industry, Rahul has completed his Bachelor's of Computer Science and Master of Computer Science from University of Pune, and Master of Science in E-Business from Birla Institute of Technology and Science. Along with university programs, he has done various certificates in IT industry. Rahul is PMI Agile Certified Practitioner, Certified Scrum Master, Certified Scrum Professional, Project Management Professional, PMP, and he's also ITIL Foundation Certified. During IT career, he worked in various technologies and domains such as healthcare, insurance, retail, virtualization, content management, e-publishing, and बरेच काही. And yeah, during this complete years, he has worked with various multinationals. He started with Cognizant Technologies, wherein he handled web application development in domains such as banking, finance, and retail. Then he moved to PTC as a project manager and group leader. There he handled mainly infrastructure related projects in product lifecycle management, so PLM domain मध्ये. Then while he was in Calsoft, handled various projects for Accept Corporation, worked on successful adoption and implementation of agile Scrum processes. Also handled various projects related to virtualization for multiple customers accounts. Primarily worked in process improvements, strengthening project management practices, organizational initiatives, etc. Before joining Persistent, Raul was Director of Engineering and Agile Practices, head at 5G Solutions. And with Persistent, he joined in 2014, and now he is working as a delivery partner, handling insurance vertical globally, handling multiple accounts over there, and also BFSI delivery unit. Uh, Within this particular Persistent career, he is using AI, ML, deep learning, and related technologies very extensively, primarily into this BFSI domain and insurance domain, which he is heading. So, with a senior business professional and agile thought leader, Rahul is also ex-vice president, uh, corporates, and ex-director programs at Project Management Institute, Pune Deccan India chapter. Pune Deccan India chapter is a voluntary organization of PMI US, wherein Ami Doga actually we came across and since 2006, and thereafter we are together. Uh, he has delivered many sessions in PMI community also, and he, at various different forums at global level also is working very like he's a very renowned speaker over there in PMI community at global level. So without taking more time, I would like to request Rahul to take us through this interesting technology. Over to you, Rahul.
Thank you. ओके, थँक्यू ओंकार, थँक्यू राहुल, आणि तुमच्या सगळ्यांशी बोलून आज खूपच छान वाटतंय. आजचा मेन जो उद्देश आहे आपल्या सेशनचा, इट इज प्रायमरली आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजन्स, मशीन लर्निंग अँड इट्स ऍप्लिकेशन्स, and also in the social sector, where do we find it relevant, where do we find it useful. I believe you are able to see me as well as see the presentation properly. If at any point, if you face any issues or drops, you can let me know. Let's first start with a cartoon, with a or with a strip with AI ML. Lot of things are being talked about AI ML. काय काय होऊ शकतं, काय काय गोष्टी try out करते. So I thought, why not start with a fun cartoon where actually you will hear a lot of things happening, a lot of things talked about, a lot of things explored. This piece of AML specifically in and around.
Rahul, your audio is breaking up. I think he's reconnecting with a different network. Let's give him a minute. ओमकार, फोन करून बघशील?
हो, करतोय.
Hello.
Yeah, Rahul.
Rahul, you are back.
Okay.
yes,
Sorry. Okay. Yeah, आणि स्क्रीन पण दिसतंय, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, I was talking about starting with a light cartoon on AIML, and we'll take it forward from here. So what has happened is nowadays AI/ML, artificial intelligence and machine learning is used so widely, so extensively that if you don't know about AI/ML, it's like an odd man out. And it's like we had this oh tu PSPO nahi janta, it's like that, to AI/ML nahi janta, it's like you've got to know, it's so much talked about, it's all around us, it's being used so actively. uh, and then you will also see or hear terms like data is new oil. There's tremendous amount of data, there's tremendous amount of information, there's tremendous amount of details that are captured about us day in, day out. And that is actually also accelerating, that is also fueling the entire discussion around AI/ML part of it. But is this relevant? Is this relevant to us for common citizens? Is this relevant to us in Indian context? Is it also relevant to us from social perspective? So let's find that out. Let's try to understand a little bit more about that and how it is relevant, how it is something that we can leverage in our day-to-day life, or where we see the practical applications of it, where we see the practical usage of it in commercial perspective as well as in the social sector in general. So if someone were to ask what is machine learning, the technical definition of machine learning would be that it's a computer program that is set to learn from experience E with respect to some task T, and performance is measured in terms of P. If the performance of a task T, which is improving with experience E, so that kind of that kind of jargon might give you a feeling like this. Arey baapre, is it a very complex affair? Is it something that's very difficult to understand, learn, try out, practice? But that's not the case. It's basically, what it means is we can actually program the computer so that it can learn by itself. When the data is presented to computers, it can learn all by itself. It can actually do certain things by itself. So that is something, in a very basic terms, what we mean as machine learning. So that's what we're going to explore. That's what I'm going to share my experiences with you. I have been using artificial intelligence, machine learning with different customers for different kind of projects. So I'll share my experiences, and I'll share what I'm seeing actually happening around us. So we'll talk about that. So to go a little bit further, in a conventional way, when we talk about programming or programming a computer or building a software, what we typically mean is basically we have some requirements. We want to build a banking website. We want to build a library website. We want to build a social networking website. So there are certain requirements. Those requirements are given to the programmers, the developers, and then the programmers will write a program. That program will get the data, and based on that data, it will generate the result. That is basically the standard way. That is basically the standard mechanism of how we do the conventional programming. That is how we do the conventional application development, software development part of it. So what is different in machine learning? Machine learning, the part that changes is we actually share the data with the computer. We also share the expected results with the computer. So this is basically the data. These are the kind of results that I received, or these are the kind of results that I'm expecting. And based on that, the computer itself creates a model. The computer itself trains a model, and that particular trained model takes the next set of data. The new data that comes in is then actually processed by this model, and then the output is given to us. So instead of we actually giving the requirements can be dynamic. The requirements can completely change. The requirements can emerge over a period of time. But the model will keep understanding the data, and based on that, it will respond to the new requirements. So it's not defined. It's not very static in that sense. Again, this is theoretical definition. Let's go further and see how it translates into the actual examples or actual use cases. So conventional way, again, to do the computer programming is basically having some kind of logic developed, some kind of, let's say, if we have a flow chart, if we have if else, if we have conditions, if we have loops, where we will ask a certain question, based on that particular answer of that question, we will have the next step taken, then the third step, then the fourth step. So there is a flow to it. There is basically a navigation that is defined based on the requirements, keep processing the data and keep giving the results. So that is how it works. Whereas if you want to work on machine learning, the way it differs is we will actually tell the computer what is the output I'm expecting. So that is something that will come as the first step. We will also share the data, and based on that, it will give us the results it will learn, and the learning results, learning outcome is something that will be shared with us. So for example, one of the things that you would have seen when you go to different sites for purchasing anything, it tells you that, hey, you're trying to build this particular product, but when customers bought this product, they also actually looked at or bought some of the other products. So what they are trying to do is they are trying to give you recommendations. They are trying to give you predictions. So what I want is a recommendation system. So I'm actually trying to build a recommendation system. And tomorrow it may not be actually this food processor. The product could be something else. The requirement could be something else. But I want the mechanism to work in the similar way. So I will provide a lot of data. Based on that data, this system, the recommendation engine, will learn about it. We'll actually see that, okay, if this is the kind of product that customer is trying to buy, then these are the other different set of products they have purchased in the past. And there is more likelihood that Rahul, who's actually now purchasing a food processor, based on the other information, based on the characteristics, based on what I know about Rahul, is more likely to buy these 1, 2, 3 other products as well. So let me recommend those products to him. Let me share, push those products to him. And that way I can increase my sale. And this is something that you will see on Amazon. This is something that you'll see if you go to buy an insurance policy. This is something you will see when you try to buy books, or many other cases where the system will understand you. The system will have historical data. Based on that, they will actually share the recommendations with you. Based on that, they will share the inputs with you. So that's a difference here, where it is not just if it is this scenario, then do this. It is actually much more dynamic. It is much more evolutionary. It is much more learning based. So that is a difference that we're talking about when we are talking about a machine learning in this context. So when we use the word machine learning, we typically use 3 different words. We talk about artificial intelligence, we talk about machine learning, and we talk about deep learning. So these actually words are interrelated, but it is also good to understand the hierarchy between them. So the first is at the top level, at the parent level, we have the field of computer science. The computer science is where we would provide the inputs, we would program the computer, and we would get the output. Then basically we build something on top of that, which is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is where we try to reduce the manual activities. So I don't have to be in front of the computer. I don't have to type the data on the website. I don't have to type the things, or I don't have to manually trigger activities. Can the system do something by itself? So that is where artificial intelligence came in, where things can be done without any manual intervention, without someone manually navigating, clicking through the things. The next, which is a sub branch of artificial intelligence, is machine learning, where we are not only doing the automated learning, where we are not only doing the automated executions, no manual activities, no manual interventions, but we are also introducing a concept that machine can learn by itself. Machine can process the data, machine can understand the data, interpret the patterns, and based on those patterns, actually machine can derive certain recommendations, derive certain output, derive certain things that actually can be pushed out to the end users. So that is basically a machine learning. Now then the field of machine learning further evolved, and then we call something called as deep learning. So deep learning tries to actually emulate the human brain, okay, how we think, how we look at, how we interpret. So for example, if I have to take a decision, I might consider a lot of different things. I might actually see what I'm seeing based on the data, what I'm hearing, what I'm sensing, processing. I would also have my historical information. I would have emotions. I would have my things that I'm currently facing as well as the past. And based on all of that, I would actually try to make a decision. So basically, let's say if someone is trying to sell a food processor, if someone is trying to sell a new product, it's not just because someone is showing that to me on the website, I'll just go and buy it. There might be a lot of other things that I'll do. And that other things is something that is captured in our brain, neural networks. That is something that the field of deep learning tries to capture. So it tries to emulate the human brain behavior, the patterns, some predictable, some unpredictable aspect of it. So that is something that basically goes into the field of deep learning. So in the current context, it is good to understand that, okay, there is a artificial intelligence, the sub branch of it is machine learning, and a sub branch of it is deep learning. So that's basically what we're talking about here. So let me give you some examples of it and how we are actually executing it on the ground. When we are, let's say, doing artificial intelligence in my organization or any of the other organizations, when someone says we are using AI or ML, what does it mean? So let me share some examples in the commercial context. So for example, let's say someone raises a claim. His car is damaged. The car actually had some minor accident, and he raises a claim for the car to be fixed or the repair or replace decision to. What happens in the someone, an adjuster, would actually go and click a lot of pictures of the damaged car. He would process that ki kute kute damage झालाय, what all places are impacted, and then he will actually determine how much is the amount to be paid. Is it 2,000 rupees? Is it 5,000 rupees? Is it 8,000 rupees? Can something be replaced? Can something just be repaired? So that all activity will be done manually by an adjuster or assessor. Now, what we did is we actually used machine learning to replace that manual part of it, which means that someone can go ahead and upload the car images of the car, and based on the images of the car, the machine actually can learn whether the car's parts are damaged or not, whether the car is absolutely in a fine condition or is it damaged to some extent. If it is damaged, to what extent? And that is what basically then is used for automated damage assessment. It is also used to identify what is the extent of damage, and based on that, what should be the cost that should be paid. So what is the claim amount that should be approved? And then that's something that can be taken forward for processing or approving the claim. Now, how do we do that? So this is okay, this is fine, but what does happen actually behind the scenes? So let me share some inputs with you on that, what happens behind the scenes. So what we did is we actually picked thousands of images of different types of cars. Some images which are absolutely normal, the cars which are absolutely fine. And we also, of course, took the images of different sides of car, the front side, the back, the rear, the from the top, just the images of the door, the window, the windshield, mirrors, everything. So we uploaded significantly large number of these images, and then we also uploaded the large number of damaged parts. So how does a damaged lamp looks like? How does a damaged windshield look like? How does a damaged bumper look like? And then we basically trained the machine learning algorithm, machine learning model, that this, when you see images like these are normal parts. When you see images like these are damaged parts. And I provide actually some sample data. I provide some data, test data, based on which the model is trained. Now, once the model is trained, then I actually, So where I say that, okay, now I'm going to give some random images and let me see if the machine learning is able to determine whether the part is absolutely in a good condition or it is damaged. So then I would actually upload just the car images, and they could be of a very specific part of a car or the entire image of a car. I can actually provide some damaged parts, non-damaged parts, images with different clarity, with blurriness, with absolutely fine images. Some images could be dark. So I will have various different combinations that I would use in the test data to check whether is the machine properly understanding. And then the algorithm, the machine learning model keeps training itself. So first it tries to identify whether the object that is uploaded, is it a car or not a car? Because if I upload a photo, let's say of a fruit, let's say I upload a photo of a banana, then the machine learning has already been trained that, oh, this is a fruit, this is not a car. So it will actually eliminate that. Then it will establish that, okay, this looks like a car, this is not a bike, this is not a truck. Now if this is a car, then what all things a car would have? The car would have 4 doors, the car would have bumper, these are the things that it will have. Then it starts to map that on the images, and then it understood how the good door looks like and how a damaged door looks like, how a mirror that is not damaged looks like and a mirror that is damaged looks like. And based on that, then it actually trains itself, it actually interprets itself, it keeps its recommendations ready. And then when you upload these new images, the test images, then it applies that logic and provides the results to us. So this is the overall process, and this is one of the projects that we implemented. And there are many more such projects where we actually define the use case. What is that we are trying to do? What is the outcome that we want? So in this case, the outcome that we want was actually the car damage assessment is something we wanted to do. Based on that outcome, then we actually provided the data. The machine learning model trained itself. And then after that training, we gave it a test data to validate whether it is working properly. And after that, we made sure that the entire model is in place. And then we put it into production, we start using it. Again, we continuously see if any new image comes in. Again, the machine tries to learn, the machine tries to interpret. If the machine made some wrong estimations, then we also try to tell the machine that, hey, this was a wrong assessment, and that wrong assessment feedback is taken by the machine learning model and it retrains itself. It again refines itself, it again enhances itself. So that is something that happens when we are talking about machine learning in the conventional context. And there are many more use cases out there. So for example, another use case that we can talk about, let's say we want to talk about traffic, which is our favorite topic. We want to understand how is the traffic scenario, and let's say in the Hinjewadi area, how is that looking like? Is the traffic problem same across all the areas, or is the traffic problem more problematic in certain areas, or in certain chalk it is more problematic? Eka specific चौकात खूप जास्त traffic congestion होता है. If that is what we want to do, what will we do? So we will actually analyze the pattern, and then we will again apply the machine learning. The machine learning will actually look at some clusters, and there are different ways and means of doing the machine learning. One of them is clustering, where it actually will identify different clusters, and then on that particular cluster, it would see where is the most problematic scenario. So then it says that, okay, by and large, there is a heavy traffic everywhere, but there are certain places where it is even bad. Those certain chalks, those certain circles are actually adding to the congestion even more. So then it becomes a challenge, or then it becomes a scenario to look at that specific problem, specific scenario, work on it in the better way. And there are a lot of such things that are possible. For example, we all actually have vehicle insurance, and then when the vehicle gets impacted, there's a damage, there's an accident, then people would raise vehicle claims. Based on those vehicle claims, the insurance companies actually know in different cities which circles, which chalk are having more accidents than some other places. So there's an interesting insight that can come out of this, that if we know that, okay, certain circles are more prone to damages, to accidents, and more claims are coming from very specific areas, or more fraud cases are coming from very specific areas. So insurance companies also know that. There are different organizations also know that certain zip codes, I'm having more problem than some of the other areas. So there are a lot of applications of machine learning in the professional setting that is used by different organizations in different ways and shapes that is being applied on the ground. Another area where machine learning is very heavily used is healthcare. And as you can see, like if the machine can identify a car and a fruit or a tree, then it can also be trained to identify other parts. And that is an area that healthcare industry is heavily using. We are working with some of our customers who are actually doing the cancer prediction. If the images are and images, can it actually identify which part could be cancerous, which part could have a problem, which part actually could be cancerous, or do we see a tumor out there? So that's something that can contribute to it. So if you see, then we can train actually our machine learning model with different images, with X-ray, MRI, CT scan images, and then the machine learning model is trained to identify all these different models, to identify all these different areas, and it can actually make sure that all these different parts, all these different areas can be differentiated. Any specific problems, challenges that are there can be identified effectively. So that's what we are looking at when we talk about machine learning. I'll move forward and keep sharing forward, and you can keep sharing some of your questions. Like I see they are being posted in the chat. Please keep sharing that. We'll definitely discuss about them in as we go forward. But this is one area, healthcare, where it is extensively used, extensively being tried out, actively being pursued by a lot of organizations, healthcare organizations, hospitals, clinics, and other service providers as well. Going forward, you will see, let's say we want to apply, we want to implement machine learning. Now, what does it mean? How do we do that? So there are different ways, there are different tools that are available for doing machine learning. There are open source tools like Python. There are commercial tools, cloud-based tools like Amazon, AWS, or Google, or Microsoft. There are other tools available there like TensorFlow. There are BigML. There are significantly large amount of tools that are available. Some of them are commercial. Some of them can be purchased on cloud-based pay-as-you-go model. Some of them are more subscription-based models. Some of them are open source like Python, Jupyter, Anaconda, and things like that. So there are these different tools, and we have people whom we call it as data scientists, who understand the data, who understand based on the data what kind of machine learning model should be used, and then they try it out, they see the outcome of that, they validate it, and then based on that they implement the machine learning model. They try to fine tune it, they try to refine it, they try to continuously improve it, and then over a period of time it becomes stable, and then it is deployed in production, it is used on the ground. So let's say if this is the case, this is how we implement it. Where do we stand as a country? What is going on? What is India doing about machine learning? Are we just having IT companies doing coding and doing machine learning for our customers, or is there something else that's happening? Now, it's amazing to see the work that is done in India in non-professional settings as well, using artificial intelligence and machine learning. and our government is aware of it. Our central government, state government, many other semi-government bodies, and even the NGOs are aware of it, and they are exploring a lot of things. So the finance minister in 2018 actually instructed Niti Aayog to set up an India strategy for AI/ML. So what happened is there was actually a national strategy for artificial intelligence, and it basically was tagged as AI for all. So that's something that was put together. And then a lot of industry people, lot of practitioners, professionals contributed their inputs on building this national strategy for AI. This is government Niti Aayog's published strategy. But government also realized that for processing such a huge amount of data and at a national level, with having so many millions of people, we need even the infrastructure to support it. That is where Niti Aayog also came up with a concept called as Airavat, which actually means that our infrastructure should also be ready for that. Just supercomputers which are in-house or data centers may not be good enough. We need the cloud infrastructure which can scale very rapidly. And that is where the scaling of national cloud specific infrastructure, which will directly support AI and ML, is also actively being pursued. Government of India also actually has a Ministry of Electronics and IT, which is actively working on the strategy for AI/ML and multiple different initiatives. So I'd quickly like to show you some of these sites and actually the work that's happening with them. So just to show you the Niti Aayog site, so you can see actually the Niti Aayog talking about the national strategy for artificial intelligence. There is actually a lot of multiple things are being explored, but out of that, the work that is happening on the AI part of it, the work that is happening with the Airavat strategy, like we discussed, is being actively pursued. You can also see if you go to the Government of India site for Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, a lot of things are happening. You can see that there is an entire ecosystem that government is trying to set up and promote, whether it is startup, whether it is investment funds or colleges or countries or different people that they can work on. Government is working on the Smart India Hackathon, where some of these concepts are tried out. Lot of resources are made available to people. Government is also actually providing training on AI. It is also actually encouraging different jobs in this area. It has actually defined the sectors which are priority sectors, like the healthcare, the financial technologies, the agriculture. A lot of initiatives are being taken up, and you can see a lot of case studies as well, like how Andhra Pradesh is actually using it to reduce the school dropouts. So you can see a case study on that. And then there are a lot of practitioners, there are a lot of professionals who are contributing to it. So there's a lot of work going on in this space. So going forward, there is also basically a tremendous application of AI/ML happening in different areas, in different sectors, and we'll try to understand a little bit more about that. So for example, if you want to see or understand where the machine learning or AI can be used in social projects which are relevant to common public, projects which are relevant to a larger audience or citizens, and one of the sector where a lot of work is happening is healthcare. So the data that was processed, the World Bank data and the analysis that was done, a lot of the data, and this is for the Indian context, it was analyzed that how many people actually from the urban area go to public hospitals. How many people from urban area go to private hospitals? Similarly, how many people from rural area go to public hospitals versus private hospitals? So you can see that a significantly large number of people go to private hospitals, whether they are in rural area or in urban area. But the problem is the lot of good quality or known private hospitals are in urban areas, are in big cities, are in metros. Now that means that these people have to travel to these places to get the medical facilities. And just to expand on it further, this is basically a graph. This is the artificial intelligence analysis that was done and presented. It says that let's take an example of Tata Memorial Hospital, which is based in Mumbai and which is known for cancer research. How many cancer patients visit Tata Memorial Hospital from outside of Mumbai? Now, if this is the case that people to Tata Memorial Hospital are coming from Madhya Pradesh, from Uttar Pradesh, from Bihar, from Jharkhand, now that tells you that there's a big problem to be worked on, because there's so many of these people who are from all other different cities and states all across India are traveling to this place. Then that's a problem. And then when they travel there, they typically travel when the stage of cancer is already gone to the next stage, so the treatment is difficult. Or when they travel, they are already in financial challenge. When they Where are they going to stay in Mumbai? How are they going to survive? All that makes things more complicated. So a lot of this data is processed in multiple different ways, and that is where actually the government and semi-government organizations or even hospitals are using some of this data to make certain decisions. That if this is the state of affairs, what needs to happen? How do we need to respond to it? How do we need to react to it? And what are the strategy decisions that need to be taken? What are the different steps that need to be taken in this case? So this is how you will see that this is just one example, but there are many such examples of AI ML in healthcare. People are doing the genome sequence analysis. People are doing identification of MRI, CT scan, and based on that process data. In the current COVID scenario, of course, data is processed very extensively to give different perspectives and then give inputs even to government to take certain decisions, including are we at a peak, when the next wave is expected, how could be the impacts of that, and all of this is used for multiple different decisions. Going forward, the analysis which is done using AI/ML and the predictions that are again coming out of it are used again in different ways. So government is working on an initiative called universal healthcare coverage, or initiatives like Ayushman Bharat or others, and they are again based on a lot of this data coming from a lot of these analysis. What is the scenario about care in pregnancy and childbirth? What does the data about neonatal infant health look like? What is the data basically looking like for the oral health care? What is the data looking like for elderly people? The care services. A lot of these inputs are coming from different data sources. They are processed, they are analyzed, the predictions are built based on it. And that is where you will see a lot of these inputs are used. Again, just to differentiate, there are a lot of tools which we typically refer as analytics tools, which actually look at the past data. They represent that past data either in tabular format, graphical format, different graphs and charts and things like that. So it actually is based on the hard facts. It's based on the past, where machine learning actually can give inputs about the prediction. It can give us inputs about the future, what can happen going forward, what can happen in this month, next 3 months, next year. So that is where again it can be used in a very powerful way for some of these different data points and then making appropriate decisions. It is also used very extensively nowadays in the agriculture sector, and it is the use of AI/ML in agriculture sector is expanding very rapidly. There is a lot of work going on in precision farming, and lot of different aspects related to that. Whether it is the farming data that is available, and which is made available to farmers using the mobile devices, where the decisions and recommendations coming from that can be leveraged by farmers for better yield and better profitability. There is actually even the sensors that monitor the animals and their food intake, water intake. There are drones that are now being used by a lot of surveillance. So basically, when an area, kharif or rabi crops are ready, then how much has been the crop yield? Or if an area is impacted, there has been flood or there have been drought, then the analysis or surveillance is done using drones and other things. There are also automated tractors, and it's not only AI. There is another concept called in IoT devices, Internet of Things devices, which also kind of bring a lot of data, weather forecasting, the soil sensors, the agribots, the crowdsourcing of this data. There's a lot of work going on. Now, some of that work, I must say, is a fancy work. And what I mean by that is it actually looks very fancy. It is something to do that, oh, we should do something in AI and ML in agriculture. But also very fundamental. Some of that is also actually bringing a lot of input, lot of insights to the end users and making a real and a tangible difference. So it's actually used on grounds, and we are also involved with some of our customers, and they are using this data actively, because this is something that they are using for their own decisions, whether they are the banks who are giving agriculture loans, whether they are insurance companies who are processing some of these agriculture related loans, insurance claims. They are, and they are using this data to make some of their decisions, so that they don't have to go to each and every field. They don't have to go to each and every hectare to identify the scenario on the ground. So all that data can be used for predictions or making some interpretations. Now, this data is also used, or AI/ML is also actively used in education sector, and government is supporting a lot of that, but private sector or the semi-government organizations are also actively pursuing a lot of that. What do we mean by that? So, for example, one of the ML use cases, student dropout risk prediction, and government is actually presenting a lot of this data, and that data can be used by different organizations to make these predictions or to do this analysis. Then there is a concept of augmented reality or a virtual reality, where we can actually use just mobile devices and use their locations like Pokemon like devices, where we augment the reality, or we bring it like a virtual reality where we are actually having those devices on our eyes and feel that we are actually somewhere out there right now. So those are again examples or usage of AI/ML even in learning, where we want to, for example, insurance companies are now using AR and VR for training their field staff. If someone is actually sitting at home today, but he has to analyze an accident that happened, let's say on the Mumbai Pune highway, and if a video is given to him, how will he analyze that? So they are trained using those images, those videos, that representation, or taking them into that scenario and training them. So a lot of work is happening in that space. It's also used for professional development courses. It's used for intuitive tutoring. So based on the learning curve, based on the pace, things can be aligned, changed, modified. So a lot of things are being explored there. There's also a work going on for using AI for smart cities and the infrastructure space, where there is a concept being explored. Can basically we make our parks and public facilities more better managed? For example, if some place the parking is full, can we identify that, oh, the parking for this particular park's common place is full and we need some other place, or we need to actually put a message that it's already full? Or if there is a traffic jam in some area, can we proactively tell citizens to avoid that area? Then we are talking about smart homes, where things can be connected, data can be moving across. We are working with our customers to use the data coming from some of the sensors from smart homes in certain decisions or determinations. AI-based service delivery is something that we are seeing in ads right now, but I'm sure at some point it will come our way and that will be used. There is also a lot of exploration on crowd management, congestion management, and leveraging information inputs coming from the AI ML in that sense. So there's a lot of exploration happening in that. And if you think this is theory, if you think these are slides, let me show you how the government is providing data for these, or how it is being actually used in the current context. So for example, the government actually has the actual site called data.gov.in. So this is an initiative by Government of India for open data. Okay, so government is actually working on something called as open data platform, and they are making lot of data, the government data, available to the users, available to organizations for making certain decisions. So for if I want to know some of the data related to health, so basically men in this age who use any kind of tobacco, so there is actually a data available out there. If you want to see the COVID-19 data as of today, that is available out there. And this all is made available by government through their sites. So this is an official government data. It of course does not contain information about individuals, something that we call it as personally identifiable information, but they abstract it out. They provide a lot of this information in different areas. So for example, if you want to understand the dropout scenario in different cities, in different states, if you want to understand the scenarios about toilets for boys and girls, a lot of this information is made available. So you don't have to search for a lot of this information. Whether this is enough for building a matured machine learning model, that could be a question, but at least the availability of data is not zero. There is some amount of data that is made available to all of us. Similarly, there are other organizations who are making a lot of data available. For example, World Health Organization is currently giving the information about COVID per country, and very detailed and very specific data. The data, let's say if I want as of today, as of yesterday, I want cumulative data, I want case by case data, I want to download this data. A lot of that is available. And then that again can be used for processing a lot of data, making determinations, making predictions. A lot of that actually is happening on the ground. So that's something I wanted to share with you, that it's being actively pursued. There is also a lot of public and private partnerships happening in this space. For example, Microsoft is actually working with government, and they're making their platform available, Microsoft's AI, for actually detecting the retinal diseases. So they are saying that our platform can be used on social basis for identifying or reducing the blindness. If we can identify retinal diseases and can action be taken on that, then that is being looked at. Google is working with their AI for HIV/AIDS risk communities. It is actually currently also working on predictions for human and wildlife conflicts in Maharashtra. They're trying to bring in inputs on those as well. Then there are a lot of private organizations or NGOs supporting some of these initiatives. For example, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is supporting Wadhwani Institute for Cough Against COVID. Now, what does that mean? If you see, actually, there's a work that is going on by Wadhwani organization with the support with cough against COVID. So what they are saying is all the cough samples of different users and the result of that, the analysis of that, which was used for identifying COVID, they want to make it available publicly. They want this data to be available to large number of people, so that people can leverage this data and then they can be used in different scenarios. They're also basically working on multiple initiatives. for cotton farming. They are using for maternal, newborn, and child health. They are working on TB related use cases. So all these are AI related use cases that this organization is working on for social good, and with the support of other NGOs and other private sector or government organizations. You can also see that government is also supporting, fueling some of these. For example, you can see the Niti Aayog CEO saying that, hey, in Facebook's AI for India Summit, that we are encouraging, we are pushing organizations to actually use its AI for social good. So not only it should be used for commercial activities, for money making activities, but also for social good, something that can be used for the nation at large. So this is all good. When you see those previous inputs, you might think that amazing. If all this is implemented, then what else is remaining? That's fantastic. But that actually is not, unfortunately, the case. It's not that everything is so rosy picture. There are a lot of challenges on the ground, and those challenges actually sometimes also determine the future of the technology or the way the technology is used in different cases. So we'll talk about some of those. So the first one is there are a lot of fundamental problems. For example, the responsibility. Because if, let's say, I am a developer and I'm doing a code, and if that code is a problem, the software has a problem, then I can be held accountable. I can be held responsible. But if the machine learning program, which learns all by itself, if the machine learning program makes a mistake, then who's responsible? So let's say if the government, or let's say Serum Institute, uses machine learning algorithm for deciding whether a particular Covishield is problem free, it is absolutely fine or not. And if that machine learning prediction was based on some false implementation, and if the outcome is wrong, then who will take the ownership? Let's say, will it be the Serum Institute? Will it be the government? Will it be the developer who implemented the AI ML code? Or will it be the computer which actually gave the recommendations? So there's a lot of challenge and issues related to ownership. How do we handle the repercussions of that? Because if the machine learning is giving a lot of predictions, giving a lot of interpretations, how do we handle that? There is also a legal perspective to this. Who handles this ownership and data and outcome? And is it owned by the customer? Is it owned by the organization that developed the model? A lot of questions are coming up on this. There is also the whole fun about AI and ML is about the data, because it is actually processing the data and it is generating the results. But if the data that is getting in is garbage, then the outcome is going to be garbage, because then you cannot get a great prediction out of it. So, and it needs a huge amount of data. Now, how are we going to get that data? If we just make some machine learning training based on 20 records, 50 records, it's not going to be a good representation. But how will we get huge data? What if the data has a bias? What if the data has false data into it? How do we deal with that? If the anomalies are there which are influencing the outcome, how do we detect that? How do we find that out? Because in this case, the computer is doing a lot of things by itself. It's not something I have explicitly programmed. So that brings a lot of these challenges. Just to show you, basically, there is a lot of this data and the quality of data related problems. There was one incident that happened sometime back, where actually the Facebook was used by some attackers. They started a live stream on Facebook Live, and they actually broadcasted a fire or a shooting incident, and the Facebook could not detect it. So basically, a lot of organizations, a lot of people, criticized Facebook that, hey, you are saying that whenever anyone goes live on Facebook Live, you are saying that we check, our AI ML checks whether that is an objectionable content, and it actually flags it. how did you miss it in this case? So the Facebook said that, oh, to achieve that prediction, we needed large amount of data for specific kind of events, which means the firing events or a massacre or someone making a shooting kind of thing. And they said these are very rare events, so we didn't had a lot of data. We didn't had a lot of images or videos of this. So our model was not trained. And then since it was not trained, it was not flagged by the system automatically. When it was live streamed and people actually flagged it, then the system could identify and stop that streaming. So you can imagine the challenges, because if it is left to the machine and if the machine has some flaws, you can give amazing explanations of that, but there might have been damage already done. So that is something that we actually carry as an impact of what can happen because of the quality of data, because of the different problems associated with that. And there are also another set of problems for managing these models. Many organizations, many of our customers also, over a period of time, they end up having significantly large number of models. So how do we manage these models? How do we get people who would do this modeling? Do we have the right skills? If I'm a social organization, I'm NGO, or I'm just an interest group, how do I do this? Do I need to learn programming languages, machine learning, coding? Or can I get someone? Will that be a costly person? All those kind of things. What is the cost of a reliable data? I need tremendous data. Is it available freely, or will I have to pay for that? And there is a maintenance overhead, because if the data changes, if you need to see whether the predictions are coming right continuously, you might have to retrain the model. You will have to make things better as we go forward. So a lot of things will have to be worked on. In Indian context also, there are a lot of challenges. First is the data sources, and we have significantly large number of scattered data sources. So we have the national census, which is a huge data. A lot of satellite images are coming in, which is an amazing data source. Cell phone records are there, location records are there. There is a lot of data collected by Anganwadi workers, people in the grassroots level. There is a lot of health information about the hospital, coming from hospitals and clinics. There is a data at state level versus central level, and this is all maintained in different formats. The challenge is there's a lot of disconnected approach. There's no collaborative effort. For example, the government wants to implement a concept called as electronic health records. So if I actually if I need to get admitted to one hospital, then they would not have my medical records. So they will ask me to do the scan and whatever tests and all that again and again. Instead of that, if there was a mechanism to share EHR between hospitals, it can actually work very well. But that government is trying, but it's not easy. That's not happening. There could be anomalies which would influence the whole way this is built. There is no robust data sets, whether clinical or any other kind of things. And then the research in this whole area is very less. Which whatever is happening in the commercial context for a lot of organizations. There are a lot of NGOs that are doing on their own, but the amount of research is still very less. And then there are a lot of concerns as well. There are data privacy concerns, security concerns. There were concerns about even the Aadhaar data being used. There were concerns about when I turn the location on for my Arogya Setu, how is that used? There are ethical aspects to that. There are not very strong regulations, wherein you would have heard in Europe and US, there are GDPR, California Privacy Act, and all those kind of things. And then there is a cost implication aspect as well. So a lot of these things are kind of impacting the whole adoption of AI/ML in a big way. And let's also look at it at the lighter way of it. We also don't want to reach a scenario, and that's where the ethical aspect comes in, where a person becomes too lazy. If machines are doing everything, then what is that people are going to do? If machine tells you that, Alexa tells you that, hey, you should watch a movie today, and even you don't have to think which movie to watch, because Netflix knows your pattern. Netflix knows what kind of movies you watched in the last 6 months, So it will tell you what movie you should watch. But maybe all of this and the ground reality could be very different. You know, when you work on things at home, it may not be that easy to talk the fancy things. We also have India and Bharat at the same time. So if that's the case, what's next? You know, what is that we should be doing in this group, or basically people who are interested in doing something in these smaller groups or in a larger context, or for nation at large? What all things that are required? So first and foremost, there needs to be a strong need. It should not be used just because AI/ML is a fancy thing and we should be doing it. There should be a real and genuine and strong need for that. So what are the social areas where it can make a good impact? We need to validate where we have the relevant data available. We need to also check what is the feasibility of applying AI/ML, or is it even not an AI/ML problem? It's just a basic analytics, it's just a basic statistical problem. We don't really need a big heavyweight AI/ML here. What we also need is different partnerships or a conglomeration of for sharing a lot of data that comes out. For example, insurance companies have a lot of data about different states and people's health patterns, driving patterns and all that, but currently they don't share with other insurance companies. They are not even sharing that with government. So if there is no sharing of data, how will this be used? You know, that becomes a big challenge. Then we need to have the right norms for storing or using the data. How do we people share the models? The IP aspect of it, who owns them, kind of it needs to be sorted out. And then there needs to be continuously inspect and adapt. We evaluate the outcome of it. We established a forum or a framework where it gets discussed, published, presented, and we need to have a pair caution with hope. You know, we need to have a caution while using AI/ML. We cannot use it blindly, but we also need to have it with a hope that it has a good potential to give a lot of insights. And if we do it in the right way, we can get a lot of benefits to that. So that's basically what I wanted to share with all of you. And that's where I'll stop and take a pause. And we'll see if there are any questions that we would like to discuss, go through, or brainstorm as a group.
So thank you very much, Rahul, for this wide coverage. There are a bunch of questions on the chat. I think some of them you have touched. You can, if you want to take them, that's also fine. I'm going to enable audio for everybody. So if anybody wants to answer questions or even give their opinions, that's welcome.
Yeah, so I see some of the questions. What I'll do is I'll try to share inputs on some of those, and then we can actually look at it. So there's a question from Prashant Date. If a model of a car is not available and you upload the images in a damaged condition, does the training still work, or do we need to upload the pictures of every model available in the market? So basically, let's say the answer, Prashant, is there are certain things that are possible. So for example, your question is, let's say I have uploaded a lot of data of Hyundai car. So my machine learning models understand Hyundai car, the doors, the bumpers, the light and all that. And now suddenly I upload data of a Maruti car. Will it be able to identify? So the answer is, and this is a common scenario we see on the ground, the machine learning will be first able to identify that this is a car, and it will be able to tell you that, this is something I know, a car that is being used here. It will be able to identify the doors and bumpers and things like that. There might be some things which are very specific to Maruti, or some things which are be very specific to Hyundai. For that, we might have to train it again to some extent. But when we, let's say, have trained the model for Hyundai and then we apply or add the images of Maruti, at least 80 to 85% the model will work as is, because it can identify a lot of those basic things. And then there'll have to be certain additional things which will have to be trained or retrained. So that retraining for different makes and models or types of cars would certainly be required. But it is not the case that if that was not trained and if you try it out, it's not going to work at all. It will still work. The accuracy percentage could be different. The question by Mrunmay is, what is the desired or the ideal test accuracy in practical scenarios? That's a good question, and many of our customers ask us this question. And we ourselves, as someone who implements these solutions, and our customers as well, they do not expect 100% guarantee or 100% assurance, because it's a learning. If it was a binary if else condition, then that's a different story. Here a learning is involved. So typically we have seen customers, when the accuracy levels are above 90%, they are happy. If the accuracy level can be further improved to 95%, 94%, it's great. But typically what I've seen is, if someone says it's 100% accuracy, then probably we'll have to check whether it's a machine learning problem at all, or it is just a standard problem of the basic rule-based scenarios, or standard problem that can be done with computer engineering. So customers will not expect 100% accuracy, but anything more than 90 is something that is acceptable. But that also brings in the caveat that if the accuracy cannot be 100%, then can these predictions be used for life-threatening scenarios? Can we make decisions just based on AI/ML? I wouldn't recommend it for cases where it has a very wide-ranging impact on life and things like that, where some manual verification, some manual testing is required. We cannot let computers take decisions about people and their lives. Okay, there is a question on how we can start learning on AI/ML, and are there commercial courses the right way to learn? I would share that there's tremendous amount of information available out there to learn about AI/ML, and there are a lot of free courses available as well. There are courses on sites like Udemy, Coursera, LinkedIn Learning. So you don't necessarily have to go for commercial courses. Of course, if you are if you're planning to look at it as a career, then maybe doing some certification paid courses would add to your profile. But otherwise, there's a lot of information available out there. Just to explain the point further, let me show you something. And again, I hope you're able to see my screen. So let's say you want to understand or learn about machine learning and how different people are doing that. So one way is basically there is a lot of data set that is available to you. You can go to a site called kaggle.com. And that kaggle.com is a site where people actually publish their machine learning models, and they make it available for free for other people to use. And what these machine learning models do is they look at a problem statement, what is a need, and for that need, what are the things that can be looked at. For example, this person actually has published a model which is actually looking at crime in India. So what are the cases against police people? What have been the escapes from police custody? What are the victims of different scenarios? So all these things are made available for data of 2016, 17, 18. All that analysis is available. You can download this data at your end and then use tools like Jupyter, Python, Anaconda, and you can do it, play it yourself. So you can see this working. There's another model available there, which is actually looking at the agriculture production of data in India. It is using the data that is made available by Government of India on the site data.gov.in, and it is actually analyzing lot of different things: the crops, the state, the quantity, the production, the yield, and multiple different permutation combinations of this. There's another one which is basically the water quality index, and how is the water quality index in different states, in different cities looking like. There's another which is the air quality analysis. and it is again making the model available for you to try out. It is actually making the entire model there for you, where you can learn, try, play this out. It also will show you how the outcome looks like and things like that. This also basically it is used for analysis based on again the data that is made available for the suicide scenarios. So what is basically the suicide cases? If I want to dissect or bisect using educational status, the adoption, the professional profile, social status, is that adding to the mix? Is that actually making any meaningful things out of it? So if you want to learn, you can actually go and even download these models, run them, practice them, and then you will see a lot of things that can be practiced, that can be done, learned hands-on. Like I said, there are a lot of government sources that are making data available to you for trying this out. We looked at the WHO data. We also looked at the data that is actually coming from different sources like the WHO. We looked at the data.gov that we looked at. It is giving the data in different cities and states. It is actually making the data available for download, or if you want to make calls to the data, it is giving you APIs that are available. There are a lot of other places where data is available. For example, in the month of January, which is from 1st of January till 31st of January of 1995, what was the temperature in Fahrenheit? So you can actually see if the temperature pattern is changing. So if you see in 1995, it was 71, 72, things like that. And if you go down, you can see the same in 2020.
Rahul, your
And then
sharing has stopped.
2020, the data is actually going into 87, 88 in that range. So that is something that can give you a lot of information to process, try out, and then work on that.
Rahul, sharing stops झालंय तुझं.
Oh, okay. I'll share it. Yeah. So what I was saying is basically there are a lot of sources which are making the data available. Like we looked at the World Health Organization, like we looked at the government sites actually which are making the data available. And then there is a lot of data that is made available directly for download, as well as real-time data through APIs. There is also the data, like I was saying, where you can actually see in 2019 how was the temperature pattern looking like versus in the 2020 how is the temperature pattern looking like. So this data is something you can download. You can actually build your machine learning model. You can use tools or machine learning models that are available out there. There are different algorithms that are available out there, or you can build your own. For using that, you can refer some of these data points that are available there and then build on it. And of course, it also allows you to learn through that. And again, there are different courses available either free or on commercial basis. Okay, there is a question by Nikhil Karkhanis on how the government can promote data sharing among organizations for AI enablement. And is the present cyber law sufficient to ensure ethical AI? Nikhil, actually government is doing part of it. First, by exposing its own data. For example, the way I'm showing you that this is the site where government is saying that, okay, this is basically the information available for health. These are the different data points that I'm making it available to you. There's a data about drinking water. There's a data about transportation. There's a data about demographic information and things like that. It is actually starting with itself in some shape and form. But it is also recognizing that it cannot do everything by itself. So it is actually encouraging the organizations to build a lot of tie-up. And that is why if you go to the Government of India IT site, they are saying that we need a lot of partners. We need actually investment funds. We need companies and countries to come forward. what government is doing is it is using this platform like data.gov to make it available. But the current rules out there, so we also have basically the privacy standards in India, but they are not widely known. And the reason why they are not widely known, because enforcement of that is not very strong. Wherein if you do not follow the GDPR in UK or in Europe, you will have significant heavy penalties. In India, that's not the case. So for example, there is this data available in Kaggle, which is out there. Now this data is anonymized data because this is made available by Government of India. But what if someone tries to publish the data which is sensitive data, which is something that should be masked, obfuscated, and only the relevant data needs to go out and things like that. So there needs to be one regulations, laws, but there needs to be a stronger enforcement or implementation concept as well. And that's not very strong at this point. There's a lot of room to do on that. Okay, I'll check if there are any other questions.
कुणाला काही बोलायचं असेल, काही मतं मांडायची असतील किंवा काही अनुभव शेअर करायचे असतील तर मोस्ट वेलकम. ऑडिओ ऑन आहे सगळ्यांसाठी, कोणी पण आपल्याला अनम्यूट करून बोलू शकता. काही गोष्टी प्रशांतनी काही प्रश्न मांडले, सोनाली माळवणकर आहेत त्यांनी काही बोललेले आहेत, शिरीष देशमुख आहे ज्यांनी काही म्हटलं आहे, त्यांना काही शेअर करायचं असेल तर.
अच्छा, एक मला प्रश्न विचारायचा आहे की जर हा डेटा ओपन आहे आणि परदेशातली लोक सुद्धा बघू शकतात आणि आपल्याकडे जी प्रायव्हसी पॉलिसीची जी एन्फोर्समेंट आहे ते तेवढं स्ट्रॉंग नाही आहे, सो कॅन अदर गव्हर्नमेंट्स अदर आय मीन फॉरेनर्स यूज ऑर मिसयूज इट टू ॲडव्हान्टेज, असा प्रश्न आहे की खास करून इंडिया बिकम्स अ ह्यूज मार्केट फॉर प्रोडक्ट्स, त्याच्या दृष्टीने काही आपल्याला जे डिसएडव्हान्टेज आहे का आपला डेटा असा ओपन करण्यामध्ये विदाउट प्रायव्हसी पॉलिसी पोस्ट?
राईट. तर प्रशांत, जे गव्हर्नमेंट जो डेटा देत आहे ना, तो डेटा ऍक्च्युली त्याच्यामध्ये सेन्सिटिव्ह डेटा नाहीये. ऍटलीस्ट जो गव्हर्नमेंट ऑफिशियली गव्हर्नमेंटच्या साईट्सवर पब्लिश करत आहे. म्हणजे फॉर एक्झाम्पल, आता जर तुम्हाला इथे हा डेटा बघायचा आहे की याच्यामध्ये बेसिकली आपल्याला आंध्र प्रदेशमध्ये कोविड ऍक्च्युली कोरोना झालेले किती लोक होते, तर एवढ्या केसेस आहेत. पण याच्यामधले मग आता त्यातले किती लोक डिस्चार्ज झाले, किती लोकांची डेथ झाली, आणि हा कधीचा डेटा आहे, तर हा आजचा डेटा आहे. पण आता यांचे कोणाची डेथ झाली, कुठल्या माणसाची डेथ झाली, किंवा कुणाला कोरोना झाला होता, कुणाला कोरोना नाही झाला, हा डेटा गव्हर्नमेंट पब्लिश करत नाही. सो त्यांनी डिफरन्शिएट केलंय. त्यामुळे हा डेटा जरी एखाद्याच्या हातात मिळाला, फॉरेन कंट्रीच्या हातात, कोणाच्याही हातात गेला, तरी ते अनालिसिस तेच करू शकतील जे आपण पण करू शकतो की बाबा इतके लोकांना कोरोना झाला, इतके लोक बरे झाले वगैरे वगैरे. पण त्यातल्या स्पेसिफिक कोणाला झाला हा त्यांनी पब्लिश नाही केला. वेरॅज सम ऑफ द अदर कंट्रीज इव्हन वेंट सम स्टेप फॉरवर्ड, आणि काही प्रायव्हेट ऑर्गनायझेशन्सनी हे बिल्ड करण्याचा प्रयत्न केला. फॉर एक्झाम्पल, आमचा एक कस्टमर आहे, तो म्हटला की आपल्याला ते कॉन्ट्रॅक्ट ट्रेसिंग करता येईल का ह्याच्यावरनं, जे बेसिकली आरोग्य सेतूमध्ये पण होतं. की सपोज शेजारी समजा एखादा कोरोना झालेला माणूस बसला, तर मला आरोग्य सेतूवर दिसतं की तुम्ही ज्या माणसाच्या शेजारी बसला होता दुपारचे 1:01 आणि तुम्ही 3 मिनिटं त्या माणसाच्या आजूबाजूला होतात, त्या माणसाला कोरोना झाला होता, तर तुम्ही पण तुमची चाचणी करून घ्या. तर हा डेटा आरोग्य सेतूमध्ये आहे. आरोग्य सेतू आता आपल्याला तो डेटा देत आपल्याला फक्त एवढंच सांगतं की तुम्ही कदाचित संपर्कात आला असाल, टेस्ट करून घ्या, पण ते नाव सांगत नाही. पण जर आरोग्य सेतू ही माहिती सांगताय, तर याचा अर्थ हा डेटा त्यांच्याकडे आहे, त्यांच्या कुठल्या तरी सर्व्हरवरती आहे, कुठल्या तरी डेटाबेसमध्ये आहे. आणि तो जर लीक झाला तर वी हॅव अ बिगर प्रॉब्लेम. सो जो डेटा ओपनली शेअर केलाय त्याच्यामुळे प्रॉब्लेम्स होण्याची शक्यता कमी आहे. पण जो डेटा शेअर नाही केलेला, जर तो लीक झाला तर मात्र ट्रिमेंडस प्रॉब्लेम्स होऊ शकतात. आणि त्याच्यामुळेच वेगवेगळे कन्सर्न्स येत राहतात अबाउट आधार और अबाउट आरोग्य सेतू और अदर थिंग्स, की आता तो डेटा सिक्युअर आहे, गव्हर्नमेंटने वेगवेगळ्या गोष्टी केल्यात, किंवा गव्हर्नमेंट म्हणते डिजिटल लॉकर एक कॉन्सेप्ट आहे की ज्याच्यामुळे तुम्ही तुमची सगळी सर्टिफिकेट्स ठेवू शकता. तो सेफ आहे तोपर्यंत ठीक आहे, पण जर तो एक्सपोज झाला तर इट कॅन हॅव सिग्निफिकंटली वायडर इम्प्लिकेशन्स.
थँक्यू.
मी एक प्रश्न विचारतो. आवाज येतोय माझा? योगेश.
हो योगेश.
या आय एम प्रोफेसर इन विश्वकर्मा युनिव्हर्सिटी. तर माझे काही स्टुडंट्स काम करत आहेत किंवा आय हॅव टॉट दिस सब्जेक्ट. एक प्रश्न असा आला की जसं आपलं मेडिक्लेम असते की ज्याच्यात वयाप्रमाणे मग प्रीमियम वाढतं. म्हणजे इफ द पर्सन इज ओल्ड और 40-50 एज, there is a probability of his falling ill is more, so that is why premium is high. Something similar is happening in insurance also, in some foreign insurance companies, that तुमचा इन्शुरन्स कार ऍक्सिडेंट करण्याची प्रेडिक्टॅबिलिटी ही करण्यासाठी काही कंपनीजनी रिसर्च केलं की तुमचा जो ड्रायव्हिंग बिहेवियर आहे किंवा ड्रायव्हिंगची सेफ्टी लेवल आहे, तर अशा प्रकारचे इन्शुरन्स कंपनीज काही गोष्टी करू शकतात का? कारण आता सध्या काय ऍक्सिडेंट पॉलिसीज जेव्हा करतो आपण इन व्हेहिकल इन्शुरन्स, स्टँडर्ड प्रीमियम असतं आणि त्याऐवजी जर इन्शुरन्स कंपनी कॅन हॅव सर्टन टेस्ट which can they conduct whatever to analyze or create a data set. So is there something that we can work on of creating a data set of driver behavior in Indian context? Has it been done, and will such research or such data set be useful for insurance companies to predict or maybe decide on the policy amount, premium amount?
राईट. तर योगेश दोन भाग आहेत. एक करता येईल का? 100% करता येईल. टेक्नॉलॉजिकली पॉसिबल आहे का? 100% पॉसिबल आहे. प्रॉब्लेम कुठे येतो की हा डेटा गोळा कुणी करायला पाहिजे, कुठे स्टोअर करायला पाहिजे आणि कशा पद्धतीने तो अवेलेबल करून द्यायला पाहिजे. म्हणजे फॉर एक्झाम्पल आता मी समजा कार चालवतोय, आता गव्हर्नमेंटनी एन्फोर्स केलं फास्टॅग वापरायला पाहिजे, तर ते फास्टॅग सगळ्या कार्स मध्ये यायला लागेल. सो फास्टॅग इज अन IoT डिव्हाइस ज्याच्यावरनं तुमचं तुमचा टोल कॅरी होईल. पण याचाच अर्थ त्या फास्टॅग डिव्हाइस मध्ये आणखीन पण भरपूर डेटा जातोय की तुम्ही कसं ड्राईव्ह करता, किती स्पीडनी ड्राईव्ह करता, मध्येच ब्रेक मारता का, काय काय गोष्टी आहेत. आता हा डेटा सपोज फास्टॅग डिव्हाइसेस बनवणाऱ्या कंपन्यांच्या डेटाबेसमध्ये गेला, तर त्यांनी तो इन्शुरन्स कंपन्यांना द्यायला पाहिजे की नाही हे कोण ठरवणार? कारण त्याला नियम असल्याशिवाय हे होऊ शकत नाही. तर तो डेटा त्यांनी विकण्याचा प्रयत्न केला, एका कंपनीला जास्त भावात दिला, दुसऱ्या कंपनीला कमी भावात दिला, तर काय होईल? आणि मी ऍज अ युजर माझा ड्रायव्हिंगचा डेटा इन्शुरन्स कंपनीनी वापरून त्याप्रमाणे मला प्रीमियम द्यावा की नाही, हा माझा प्रायव्हसीचा भंग आहे, तर त्याचा निर्णय कोण घेणार? तर हा मेन प्रॉब्लेम आहे. टेक्नॉलॉजिकली पॉसिबल आहे का नाही हा इश्यू नाहीच आहे, कारण हे खूप साऱ्या गोष्टी पॉसिबल आहेत. प्रॉब्लेम येतोय की हे सगळं एका यंत्रणा बेसिकली जी त्याला लागते ना, तिथे प्रॉब्लेम आहे. आणि म्हणून आता ह्या गोष्टी होत आहेत. हे होऊ शकेल का? जे US मध्ये होत आहे ते इंडियात होऊ शकेल का हा प्रश्न नाहीये. आता सुद्धा ते होत आहे, फक्त ते विस्कळीत प्रमाणात होत आहे, इंडिव्हिज्युअली होत आहे. फॉर एक्झाम्पल एक आता सुद्धा अशी एक इन्शुरन्स कंपनी आहे जी तुम्हाला सांगते की जर तुम्ही IoT डिव्हाइसेस वापरलेत, म्हणजे जर तुम्ही बेसिकली तुम्ही ऍपल वॉच वापरलं, फिटबिट वापरलं किंवा मोबाईलवरती आम्ही सांगितलेलं ऍप इन्स्टॉल केलं, तर आम्ही तुम्हाला प्रीमियम मध्ये सवलत देऊ किंवा काही दुसऱ्या पद्धतीने डिस्काउंट देऊ. तो डिस्काउंट मागचा उद्देश असतो की त्यांना तुमचा एक पूर्ण माहिती हिस्ट्री त्यांच्याकडे जाते. पण तो डेटा ते फक्त त्यांच्याकडे ठेवतात. त्या एका इन्शुरन्स कंपनीचा डेटा दुसऱ्या कंपनीला किंवा गव्हर्नमेंटकडे जात नाही. सो तो डेटा शेअर करण्याचा आता प्लॅटफॉर्म नाहीये, आणि तो करण्याचा काहीतरी एक यंत्रणा लागेल की जो डेटा अक्रॉस द ऑर्गनायझेशन जाऊ शकेल, आणि तो जाण्यापूर्वी त्या पर्टिक्युलर युजरचा कन्सेंट
लागेल.
तर तिथे आता प्रॉब्लेम आहे.
ओके.
मला एक प्रश्न याच्याबद्दल,
राहुल, मला एक डाऊट आहे. हॅलो राहुल,
शिरीष.
हा हे बघ, तू मगाशी ते ब्रेन मॅपिंग दाखवलं. हॅलो, ऐकू येतं का?
हो येत आहे शिरीष.
हा, तर मला असं विचारायचंय, त्या ब्रेन मॅपिंग वर तू ते कॅन्सर वगैरे दाखवलं ना, मला असं विचारायचं की ते पॅटर्न हे ब्रेनच्या विचारांनी बदलतात का? म्हणजे उदाहरणार्थ एखादा माणूस त्याच्या डोक्यात टेररिस्ट विचार चाललेत का, हे ब्रेनचं ते तुझे पिक्चर आहे तसे करून कळतं का? म्हणजे विचारांशी आणि त्यांनी काय ब्रेनच्या पॅटर्न मध्ये काय फरक पडतो का?
शिरीषजी, अगेन मेडिकल फील्डचं जे काही आता रिसर्च चालू आहे ना, त्याप्रमाणे अशा काही गोष्टींचा विचार चालू आहे की समजा एखादा माणूस आनंदी असेल तर ते कुठले हार्मोन्स सिक्रेट होतात आणि त्याचा पॅटर्न कसा आहे, आणि एखादा दुःखी असेल तर तो पॅटर्न कसा दिसेल, याच्यावरती काम चालू आहे. माझ्या माहितीप्रमाणे ऍटलिस्ट आम्ही ज्या काही प्रोजेक्ट मध्ये इन्व्हॉल्ड आहोत त्याच्यामध्ये मी या लेवल पर्यंत कोणी गेल्याचं बघितलं नाहीये की एखाद्या माणसाच्या मनोव्यवस्थेचा अभ्यास करून त्याच्यावरती काही प्रेडिक्शन्स बिल्ड करणं की हा माणूस नॉर्मल वाटतोय का, हा माणूस पुढे जाऊन गुन्हा करण्याची शक्यता आहे, तिथपर्यंत मी आता बघितलेलं नाहीये. परंतु जे कॅन्सर डिसीज प्रेडिक्शन किंवा इव्हन हेल्थ प्रेडिक्शन याच्यावरती डेफिनेटली काम चालू आहे, भारतात काम चालू आहे. पण अगेन विथ ऍटलीस्ट काही इनपुट्स याच्यातनं मिळू शकतात का, मिळू शकतील कदाचित, पण त्या प्रकारचं रिसर्च करण्याची जबाबदारी कोण घेणार आणि एथिकल पद्धतीने जबाबदारी कोण घेणार, हा एक सध्या मोठा प्रश्न आहे.
आणि दुसरं म्हणजे असं काही आहे का की रेडिएशन करून ते पॅटर्न बदलता येतात?
अगेन मला विचाराल तर टेक्नॉलॉजिकली शक्य आहे, मेडिकल फील्डच्या दृष्टीने शक्य आहे. कारण फॉर एक्झाम्पल आपण MRI म्हणतो, राईट? तर MRI म्हणजे काय असतं की त्यामध्ये त्या पर्सनच्या शरीरात आपण काही जे काही द्रव्य सोडतो आणि त्याच्यामुळे जे मॅग्नेटिक फील्ड जे काय पूर्ण शरीरामध्ये तयार होतं, त्या मॅग्नेटिक फील्डचा अनालिसिस ते मशीन करतं आणि त्याच्याप्रमाणे आपल्याला काही गोष्टी सांगतं की अरे इथे ट्युमर दिसतोय, इथे अमुक दिसतोय, इथे अमुक गोष्टी आहेत. जर ते होऊ शकतं तर दुसऱ्याही काही गोष्टी होऊ शकतात. पद्धतीचं काही आता
थोडक्यात म्हणजे एक इंजेक्शन दिलं की वाल्याचा वाळ्या कोळी झाला, असं करता येईल का?
असं म्हणजे अगेन आता जे आपण ज्या पद्धतीचा रिसर्च बघतोय, काही प्रमाणात कदाचित शक्य असेल. अगेन ते एथिकल आहे का, करणं बरोबर आहे का, आणि ते कुणी करावं, ते गव्हर्नमेंटच्या परवानगीशिवाय होऊ द्यावं का, आर द ओपन क्वेश्चन्स राईट नाउ.
एक प्रश्न विचारायचा मला की NEP नॅशनल न्यू एज्युकेशन पॉलिसीच्या अंतर्गत असं म्हटलं जात आहे की सायन्सेस सगळे मातृभाषेतून शिकवले जावे. आता एका वर्गामध्ये जसं मुंबईमध्ये आहे, पुण्यात किंवा जे मेट्रोपॉलिटन सिटीज आहेत त्याच्यामध्ये एक समजा हिंदी स्पीकिंग आहे, दुसरा बेंगॉली स्पीकिंग आहे, तिसरा तमिळ स्पीकिंग आहे, चौथा मराठी स्पीकिंग आहे, अशा वेगवेगळ्या भाषा बोलणारी मुलं आहेत. आता शिक्षकांनी शिकवायचं कुठल्या भाषेत? आता शिक्षक समजा इंग्लिशमध्ये शिकवतोय, असं शक्य आहे की आहे का की मी समजा इंग्लिशमध्ये बोलतोय तर बंगाली मुलाला बंगालीत ऐकू जाईल, तमिळ मुलाला तमिळमध्ये ऐकू जाईल, हिंदी स्पीकिंग मुलाला हिंदी स्पीकिंग मध्ये ऐकू जाईल. तसंच मी समजा प्रश्न विचारत त्यांनी दिलेली उत्तरं जी आहेत, समजा बंगालीतनं उत्तर दिलं तर मला ते मराठीतनं ऐकू येईल वगैरे, अशा प्रकारचं काही होऊ शकतं का AI आणि ML मधनं?
प्रशांतजी, काही प्रमाणात ते होत आहे ऑलरेडी. म्हणजे जर तुम्ही बघाल तर गुगल ट्रान्सलेटर ज्या पद्धतीने आता मराठी भाषा पण समजतोय, पूर्वी फक्त इंग्लिश व्हायची, आता ते ट्रान्सलेशन मध्ये हिंदी आली आहे, मराठी आली आहे. तर ते काही प्रमाणात पॉसिबल आहे, कारण इंग्लिश टू मराठी आणि मराठी टू इंग्लिश हे पण आता पॉसिबल झालंय. तर आणि काही प्रमाणात असे पण डिव्हाइसेस आहेत की ते बेसिकली एका लँग्वेज मधनं दुसऱ्या लँग्वेज मध्ये ट्रान्सलेट करू शकतात. अजून ती टेक्नॉलॉजी ज्याला आपण नॅचरल लँग्वेज प्रोसेसिंग म्हणतो, त्याच्यावर खूप सध्या काम चालू आहे. अजून ती एवढी मॅच्युअर झाली नाहीये की आपण त्याच्यावर 100% विश्वास ठेवू शकतो, पण खूप काम चालू आहे. म्हणजे आता समजा गुगल मॅप असेल तर गुगल मॅप तुम्हाला जर तुम्ही चालू केलात आणि तुम्हाला सांगतो, गुगल मॅपचा जो काय आवाज असेल तो तुम्हाला सांगतो की पत्र्या मारुतीकडनं राईट घ्या, मग निंबाळकर तालमीच्या इथनं सरळ जा, मग तुम्हाला दुसरीकडे तुम्हाला तिथे पुण्या मुरलीधर दिसेल. ते इंग्लिश मधनं त्या माणसाच्या टोन मधनं ऐकायला खूप विनोदी वाटतं, पण तेच आवाज आता मराठीमध्ये किंवा तेच आवाज आपल्या जे डायलेक्ट आहे त्याच्यामध्ये आणण्याचा प्रयत्न चालू आहे. ते होऊ शकतं. त्यामुळे एज्युकेशन मध्ये तर नक्कीच या गोष्टी दिसतील आपल्याला की आपण वेगवेगळ्या भाषा असतील तरी आपण एकमेकांशी संवाद साधणे इतपत होऊ शकतं. पण त्यातनं काही वेळेला गमती जमती पण होतात, कारण मराठी भाषा ही खूप वेगळ्या पद्धतीने इंटरप्रेट केली जाऊ शकते. अजून इंग्लिश तेवढी मराठीची समज आली असं मी म्हणणार नाही.
थँक्यू.
गुगलने त्यांचं जे मॉडेल आहे ते
मी-
17 भाषांमध्ये अवेलेबल करून दिलंय. ते आपण काही प्रयोगांसाठी नक्की वापरू शकतो. श्रीकांत जोशींना काहीतरी विचारशे
हा.
आणि दोघांनी हात वर केलाय, त्यांनी पण याच्यानंतर विचारावं. विना
हा,
देव
मी
मराठी.
सॉरी, मी मध्ये हात वर न करता
हो,
मध्ये
बोला
घेतोय,
बोला.
पण
हा.
मी कम्प्युटेशनल लिंग्विस्ट आहे आणि मी याच फील्डमध्ये रिसर्च करतो. तर NLP म्हणजे लँग्वेज ही प्रचंड क्लिष्ट गोष्ट आहे. म्हणजे मराठी घ्या, इंग्लिश घ्या, जगातल्या सर्व भाषा ह्या अत्यंत क्लिष्ट आहेत. आणि ML किंवा आता जे न्यूरल नेट बेस्ड किंवा डीप लर्निंग बेस्ड जे काय चाललेले आहेत उपक्रम, ते सगळे डेटा डिपेंडंट आहेत टोटली. म्हणजे तुम्हाला 1 मिलियन 1 बिलियन वाक्य त्याच्यात फीड केले तर काहीतरी त्यातनं येतं. तर माझं स्वतःच म्हणजे याच्यात आता मी गेली काही वर्ष काम करत असल्यावर माझं स्वतःचं मत असं आहे की लँग्वेज प्रोसेसिंगसाठी न्यूरल नेट्स अजूनही तितकीशी योग्य नाहीत. म्हणजे आपण GPT-3 वगैरे जर बघितलं असेल तर ते 175 बिलियन अमुक तमुक ते असे मोठे आकडे फेकतात. 52 हे काहीतरी अमुक 1 GB मेमरी वापरून वगैरे वगैरे, पण ते सगळं करून भाषा अजूनही कम्प्युटरला समजत नाही. त्याचं कारण भाषा अजून आपल्यालाच समजत नाही खरं सांगायचं तर. आणि याच्यात काही प्रश्नोत्तरांमध्ये काही ब्रेनच्या फंक्शनिंग बद्दल प्रश्न आलेले होते, तर आपल्याला अजून ब्रेनही समजलेला नाही आणि ब्रेन भाषा कशी प्रोसेस करतो हेही समजलेलं नाही. म्हणजे आपल्याकडे जे पूर्वीपासून भाषेचे 4 प्रकार म्हणलेले आहेत, पश्चिमा, वैखरी, मध्यमा, तर हे जे आहेत हे अजूनही आपल्याला समजलेले नाहीत. मुद्दा हा आहे या सगळ्यामध्ये की NLP वर काम चालू आहे, पण ते सगळं स्टॅटिस्टिक्स बेस्ड आहे. अजूनही रिअल नॅचरल लँग्वेज अंडरस्टँडिंग झालेलं नाही. त्यामुळे ट्रान्सलेशन जी होत आहेत, गुगल ट्रान्सलेट म्हणा किंवा इतरही अनेक आता ट्रान्सलेशन टूल उपलब्ध आहेत, तर त्याच्यात जे होतंय ते फक्त स्टॅटिस्टिकली हे वाक्य किंवा ह्या 4 शब्दांचा समूह किती वेळेला एकत्र आलेला आहे आणि based on that what is the product, the next 4 words will appear a pattern, अशा बेसिसवरच ते चालतं. आणि खरं नॅचरल लँग्वेज अंडरस्टँडिंग हे अजूनही झालेलं नाहीये. त्यामुळे त्याला वेळ लागेल. म्हणजे परत एकदा की हे राहुल तुम्ही मगाशी म्हणालात तसं की सगळं छान दिसत असलं तरी छान ग्राउंड लेवलला छान नाहीये. तर तसंच इनफॅक्ट मी तर म्हणेन इमेज प्रोसेसिंग म्हणजे AI ML वापरून इमेज प्रोसेसिंग हे त्या मानाने सोपं आहे, कारण इमेज एकदा घेतली की ते स्टॅटिक, पण भाषा ही तर बदलत असते. आपण म्हणतो 12 कोसावर तर बदलतेच, पण एका जागची भाषा सुद्धा अक्रॉस टाइम बदलत असते कालानुसार. तर त्याच्यामुळे NLP हा खूपच मोठा लांबचा टप्पा आहे. त्याच्यामुळे फार मला वाटतं आपण त्याच्यावर आत्ता नजीकच्या भविष्यकाळात तरी फार आशा ठेवण्यात अर्थ नाही. जरी ह्या मोठ्या कंपन्या गुगल, फेसबुक वगैरे कितीही त्या बाबतीत हाईप करत असल्या तरी इट इज स्टील अ हाईप, इट इज नॉट द रियालिटी.
करेक्ट.
धन्यवाद.
आणि अगदी अगदी खरं आहे. कारण त्यामुळे ना त्याचा आपण रेफरन्स घेऊ शकतो का, त्याचा उपयोग करू शकतो का, तर करू शकतो, पण त्याच्यावर अवलंबून राहावं का, तर मला नाही वाटत अजून आपण तिथे पोहोचलोय की आपण त्याच्यावर अवलंबून राहून काही निर्णय घ्यावे. श्रीकांत.
वीणा देऊसकरांनी
हो
हात
हो
वर
हो
केलाय.
बरोबर आहे. अवलंबून राहून हे खरं तर AI ML च्या कुठल्याही बाबतीत, आणि म्हणूनच आता AI ची पुढची स्टेप म्हणून लोक आता एक्सप्लेनेबल AI कडे गेलेले आहेत की AI अमुक एक डेटा दिल्यावर अमुक एक आउटपुट का देतो हे आजपर्यंत कळलेलं नाही. कारण डीप लर्निंग किंवा न्यूरल नेट बेस्ड सिस्टीम जे आहेत त्या सगळ्या ब्लॅक बॉक्स आहेत. त्याच्या आत काय चालतं हे आपल्याला काही कळत नाही. तो काहीतरी उत्तर देतो, आपल्या तोंडावर फेकतो, पण का हे माहित नाही. म्हणून आता एक्सप्लेनेबल AIच्या दृष्टीने काही काम चालू आहे, पण तेही अजून खूप प्रिमिटिव्ह स्टेज मध्ये आहे. आणि मी म्हणूनच म्हटलं की इमेज प्रोसेसिंग वगैरे तरी सुद्धा इझिली अवेलेबल, सो टू स्पीक इझिली अवेलेबल टार्गेट्स आहेत. लँग्वेज ही खूपच लांब आहे.
नक्की 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 ऍब्सोल्युटली.
धन्यवाद.
हॅलो, हा नमस्कार, विनायक.
हा बोला.
EHR संबंधी तू एक उल्लेख केलास. EHR संबंधी बऱ्याच 1-2 वर्ष बऱ्याच विविध लोकांशी बोललो याच्यावर. तर as long as you take the medical data out of any software that is developed in India किंवा outside, which may be HL5, HL7 जे काही तुमचे प्लॅटफॉर्म्स आहेत, if you keep the billing part of it away, I don't think government cannot make it compulsory for any software company to build a software that will give essentially the medical part on a national database based on Aadhaar number. कारण आता UDI आहे म्हणून. तर that's not a difficult issue. आता why government is not making it compulsory माहित नाही. ते अनेक गोष्टी compulsory करते without asking us. So this is a much simpler and more socially useful step by the government असं मला वाटतं. दुसरा योगेशचा जो प्रश्न होता इन्शुरन्स आणि मोटर इन्शुरन्स एस्पेशली, तर अविवा हॅज अ ऍप की ज्याच्यात तुम्ही गाडी रिन्युअलच्या आधी ते ऍप डाउनलोड करायचं अँड यू ड्राईव्ह द व्हेकल. काहीतरी 1 ते 30 तास वगैरे असेस करतात आणि तुमचा प्रीमियम कमी होऊ शकतो त्यांनी. पण मग असं मी कमी करण्यासाठी वापरू शकतो का फक्त ते? येस, आय कॅन डू इट. पण याचा अर्थ मी गाडी तशीच चालवणार आहे असं होईल असं नाहीये. दे अज्युम की प्रॉबेबली you will be driving it the same way. त्यामुळे though it's a good way of reducing your premium, I don't know how long you will drive in the same way.
Yeah.
अगदी खरं आहे. आणि त्यामुळे आता मी अनेक इन्शुरन्स कंपन्यांबरोबर काम करतो. ते पण याचा सगळ्याचा हुशारीने उपयोग करून घेतात. त्यांना हे माहिती आहे की तुम्ही सुरुवातीचे ऍप डाउनलोड करून 30 तास जर तुम्ही अतिशय सुंदर गाडी चालवली, तर याचा अर्थ असा नाहीये की तुम्ही पूर्ण वेळ तशीच चालवाल. तर ते पण प्रीमियम त्या पद्धतीने ऍडजस्ट करून मग डिस्काउंट देऊन या गोष्टी करतात. फक्त त्याच्या मागचा उद्देश आहे ना की ते तुमचं बिहेवियर ड्राईव्ह करण्याचा प्रयत्न करतात. की तुम्ही जर चांगली गाडी चालवली तर तुमचा ऍक्सिडेंट कमी होतील. तुमचे ऍक्सिडेंट कमी झाले तर क्लेम्स कमी रेज होतील. क्लेम्स कमी रेज झाले तर तुम्हालाही फायदा आहे, आम्हालाही फायदा आहे. सेम हेल्थ इन्शुरन्स मध्ये पण होत आहे. काही कंपन्या सांगतायत की जर तुम्ही वेगवेगळ्या फिटनेस सेंटर्स कडे जाऊन जर रेग्युलरली तुम्ही जिम केलं, तुम्ही हेल्दी राहण्यासाठी प्रयत्न केलेत, हेल्दी फूड खाल्लं, तर आम्ही तुम्हाला डिस्काउंट देऊ. म्हणजे तुम्ही आजारी कमी पडाल. तुम्ही आजारी कमी पडलात तर तुम्हालाही फायदा आहे, आम्हालाही फायदा आहे, कारण क्लेम्स कमी येतील. तर ते या माध्यमांचा एक बिहेवियर ड्राईव्ह करण्यासाठी उपयोग करतात. ऍज लॉंग एज आपण त्यांचा डिसिजन्स घेण्यासाठी उपयोग करत नाही आणि त्याच्या बेसिसवरनं एखाद्याला देणं पॉलिसी किंवा न देणं असं आपण करत नाही, तोपर्यंत ठीक आहे, कारण आपण त्याचा एक योग्य पद्धतीने वापर करू.
दुसरं एक होतं की MRI बेस. आता फंक्शनल MRI मध्ये यू कॅन डिटेक्ट व्हॉट चेंजेस कॅन हॅपन विथ युअर इमोशन. परंतु इश्यू असा आहे की वाय यू वॉन्ट टू चेंज दॅट. एक टेररिस्ट आहे, त्याच्यात रेडिएशन कडून तो काय चांगला माणूस होण्याची शक्यता आहे का? मला नाही वाटत. म्हणजे द नेचर विल नॉट डू समथिंग लाईक दिस की समबडी हू हॅज मोर सुसाइडल टेंडन्सीज ही शुड सर्व्हाइव्ह. दॅट्स व्हॉट द इव्होल्युशन इज अबाउट. सो वाय यू वॉन्ट टू चेंज दॅट.
जस्ट टू ऍड टू योगेशनी जे म्हणलं होतं, तर व्हेकल इन्शुरन्स आणि हेल्थ इन्शुरन्स मध्ये बेसिक फरक असा आहे की हेल्थ इन्शुरन्स हा इंडिव्हिज्युअल करताय आणि इंडिव्हिज्युअलचं बिहेवियर कॅन बी चेक्ड आणि त्याच्यावर बेस्ड त्याचं हे करता येईल. पण व्हेकलच्या केसमध्ये सेम व्हेकल कॅन बी ड्रिव्हन बाय डिफरंट पीपल ऑफ डिफरंट रिस्क पॅटर्न. त्यामुळे तिथं तो इन्शुरन्स प्रीमियम त्यात एकाच्या ह्याच्यावर चेक करणं मे बी डिफिकल्ट, मे बी रॉंग रादर. म्हणजे
याच्यामध्ये ना खूप सगळ्या वेगवेगळ्या गोष्टी येत आहेत आणि त्यामुळे आता कंपन्या ह्या सगळा डेटा त्यांच्याकडे जो येतोय तो ऍब्सॉर्ब करून ते त्याच्यावरती चाचपडतायत असं आपण म्हणूयात. आणि कारण तो क्वालिटी ऑफ द डेटा की तो खरंच रिलायबल डेटा आहे का, तो डेटा मला ऑथेंटिक सोर्सेस कडनं येतोय का. जर मी सांगितलेल्या ऍपवरनं लोक वापरत असतील तर मला विश्वास आहे. परंतु सपोज मी फक्त आंध्र प्रदेशचा डेटा घेतला आणि आंध्र प्रदेश मध्ये लोक कसे गाड्या चालवतात याच्या बेसिसवर मी महाराष्ट्रात निर्णय घेऊ शकतो का, तर नाही घेऊ शकणार कदाचित. त्यामुळे त्यात खूप सगळ्या गोष्टी ऍड होतात आणि त्यामुळे आता लोक ते चाचपडण्याच्या स्टेजमध्ये की जे त्याच्यातनं काय माहिती मिळतीये जी बेसिक पर्सनला आपल्या रेग्युलर हातात कागद आहे त्याच्या बेसिसवर मिळणार नाही, काय एक्स्ट्रा इनपुट्स आपल्याला यातनं सिस्टम कडनं मिळू शकतील, त्या पद्धतीने आता बरेच लोक त्याचा वापर करतात.
नाही, हे जे प्रीमियम कमी होतात ते फक्त इंडिव्हिज्युअल साठी चालू आहे कंपनीचं. इट इज नॉट फॉर अ टोटल प्रीमियम. कारण ऍज इट इज स्टेट वाईज लोकेशन वाईज प्रीमियम रेट ऑलवेज व्हेरी. समजा मी लंडन मध्ये राहतो तर माझा प्रीमियम इज मच हायर दॅन आय लिव्ह इन सम विलेज इन द इंग्लंड. कारण तिथली क्राईम रेट, तिथे डॅमेज होण्याची शक्यता. सो दॅट इज नॉट गोइंग टू चेंज. द प्रीमियम रेट इज गोइंग टू गो डाऊन ओनली विथ युअर ड्रायव्हिंग कपॅसिटी किंवा ॲबिलिटी किंवा बिहेवियर, एवढाच त्याचा उद्देश आहे त्यांचा. अदरवाईज नो इन्शुरन्स कंपनी विल सी टू इट तुमचा प्रीमियम कधी खाली जाईल. इम्पॉसिबल आहे. दॅट इज नॉट गोइंग टू वर्क इन एनी कॅपिटलिस्टिक ओरिएंटेड मार्केट.
आम्ही जेव्हा चर्चा केली ना तेव्हा असा ऍक्च्युली प्रश्न चर्चेला आला होता की एकाने चर्चेमध्ये की आपण पुण्यात वेगवेगळे रिक्षावाले ट्रॅफिक मधनं बरोबर मार्ग काढून त्यांचा काय तो हाऊ डू दे थिंक ऑफ हाऊ टू टेक अस टू द राईट डेस्टिनेशन इवन इफ देर आर ट्रॅफिक्स थ्रू मल्टिपल रूट शॉर्टकट्स. तर ती शॉर्टकट्स आपल्याला माहिती आहे गुगल मॅप रिरूट करतो वगैरे वगैरे. गुगल मॅप फक्त दाखवू शकतो की इथे रेड आहे, इकडे अजून काय आहे. पण कॅन वी हॅव सच वे ऑफ नो रेकमेंडिंग अ ड्रायव्हर अन अल्टरनेटिव्ह पाथ ओके टू टेक इट. अँड समटाइम्स आपण ज्याला जुगाड म्हणतो तो जुगाड त्या प्रत्यक्ष व्यक्तीवर पण अवलंबून असतो किंवा अर्थात हा प्रॉब्लेम मी मांडतोय तो कॉम्प्लेक्स आहे आणि तो बरोबर त्या गल्लीतनं वगैरे आपल्याला घेऊन जातो. तर अशा प्रकारे काही आपल्याला रेकमेंडर ड्रायव्हरची नॅव्हिगेशन वगैरे आणि हा एक वेगळा आहे विषय कॉम्प्लेक्स आहे आणि आय थिंक विनायक नी सांगितलेले मुद्दे पण अगदी योग्य आहेत.
योगेश या
योगेश-
प्रश्नाला एक पुष्टी देतोय की याच्यातनं मशीन लर्निंग होऊ शकतं का अशा इनपुट्स मधनं?
हा मग
तर-
तोच विचार चाललाय आमचा म्हणजे असा प्रॉब्लेम घेऊन काही करता येईल का असं.
राईट. तर योगेश बऱ्याच गोष्टी पॉसिबल आहेत. बराच डेटा आपल्याकडे सध्या येतोय. तो कशा पद्धतीने वापरायचा हा खूप मोठा भाग आहे. फॉर एक्झाम्पल आता ना जो डेटा ड्रोनच्या माध्यमातून बघितला जातोय त्याच्यावरती ऍक्च्युली काम केलं जात आहे की कुठे जनावरांची तस्करी होतीये का. तर त्याच्यासाठी ऍक्च्युली ह्या सगळ्या इमेजेसचा सपोज वापर केला जातोय. त्यानंतर दुसरी एक ऑर्गनायझेशन आहे आयडी इन्साइट म्हणून. ते महिलांच्या शिक्षणावरती काम करतायत आणि त्याच्यावरती ऍक्च्युली ते बघतायत की ड्रॉपआउट मुलींचं ड्रॉपआउट चा सिनारिओ काय आहे, कुठल्या कुठल्या डिस्ट्रिक्ट मध्ये आहे, कुठल्या कुठल्या स्टेट मध्ये आहे, कुठल्या भागात तो जास्त आहे आणि या भागात तुम्ही एक माणूस अपॉइंट करा, या भागात एक माणूस अपॉइंट करा. असं खूप काही गोष्टी शक्य आहेत. फक्त आता तो हे करण्यासाठी ते कुठला ग्रुप ते काय करेल, कुठल्या ऑब्जेक्टिव्हनी कुठल्या उद्देशाने करेल आणि त्याच्यासाठी जो डेटा आपण वापरणार तो डेटा कशा पद्धतीने आपण वापरतो त्याच्यावर खूप साऱ्या गोष्टी अवलंबून राहतील.
पुष्कराज मराठे.
नमस्कार. दोन मुद्दे ऍड करू इच्छितो. एक म्हणजे एनईपी रिलेटेड जो मुद्दा होता न्यू एज्युकेशन पॉलिसी. तर न्यू एज्युकेशन पॉलिसी यायच्या आधी गेले 2-3 वर्षापासून सीबीएसईनी हा विषय हा इयत्ता 9वी आणि 10वी यासाठी ऍड केलेला आहे. एक जो प्रयत्न सध्या चालू आहे गेल्या जून-जुलै पासून, तर आपल्या प्रबोधिनी प्रशालेच्या 6वी-7वी साठी हा स्पेशल इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप म्हणून जो AI चा विषय आहे तो सध्या मी शिकवतोय. याच्यातले 2 महत्वाचे मुद्दे असे आहेत की आपण हे एक टूल आहे, आत्ता नाही गेले 40 वर्षापासून आहे, पण आता कम्प्युटिंग पॉवर वाढल्यामुळे त्याची ऍप्लिकेबिलिटी जास्ती वाढू शकते आत्ता आणि त्यामुळे वाढते. तर आपल्याला जर काही वेगळं करायचं असेल तर आपण त्या पद्धतीचं ऍप्लिकेशन ओरिएंटेड थिंकिंग आत्तापासून विद्यार्थ्यात आणणं हे महत्वाचं आहे. म्हणजे मग ती साधी उदाहरणं असतील की रस्त्यावरचं तुझ्या गल्लीतलं ट्रॅफिक मॉनिटर करून काय होईल, किंवा डेटा साधा गोळा करायचा झाला तरी सकाळी किती ठिकाणी किती वाजता काय गोष्टी घडतात इथपासून. म्हणजे हा एक छोटे छोटे प्रोजेक्ट्स घेऊ शकतो आपण आपल्या इंडिव्हिज्युअल लेवलला, ज्याच्यामुळे आपला स्वतःचा या विषयातलं जे आकलन आहे ते वाढेल. मध्यंतरी दुसरा एक थोड्या वेळापूर्वी डेटा प्रायव्हसीचा जो इश्यू होता, तर काही वर्ष अमेरिकेतल्या अनेक कंपन्यांबरोबर काम केल्यामुळे काही असे अनुभव आहेत की तिथे GDPR आणि इतर गोष्टी जेवढ्या ऍक्टिव्हली पसरल्यात किंवा सेन्सिटिव्हिटी आहे तेवढी इथे दुर्दैवाने नाहीये. म्हणजे इव्हन साध्या साध्या गोष्टी ज्या आपल्या डेटा जो आपला ऑर्गनायझेशनचा डेटा असतो तो सहज निष्काळजीपणे हाताळला जातो. कारण सध्या मी इन्फॉर्मेशन सिस्टम ऑडिटचंही काम करतोय, तर त्यामुळे हे नजरेत येतं की आपण बाकीच्या इतरांनी आपला डेटा चोरण्यापेक्षा गहाळ होण्याची पण शक्यता आपल्या इथे जास्ती आहे. तर हे दोन मुद्दे मला वाटतं प्रत्येकाने याच्यावर विचार करायला हरकत नाही. आणि आता 1-2 तासात ह्या विषयाची व्याप्ती कव्हर करणं अवघड आहे. त्यामुळे जर पुढे एकत्रपणे काही शॉर्ट किंवा छोट्या ग्रुपमध्ये ह्याचं पुढे आपल्याला काही नेता आलं तर आवर्जून त्याच्यात सहभागी व्हायला आवडेल. धन्यवाद.
छानच. अजून कोणाला काही प्रश्न किंवा काही मांडायचं आहे? नाही येत. आपण
एकच प्रश्न आहे राहुल सुदामेंना डायरेक्ट, की तुमच्या अजून एआय सोडून बाकी इंटरेस्ट कुठल्या डोमेन्स मध्ये किंवा टेक्नॉलॉजी मध्ये आहेत?
माझा मुख्य निखिल इंटरेस्ट आहे की कस्टमर्सना व्हॅल्यू डिलिव्हर करणं. कस्टमर्सना जो इंटरेस्ट म्हणजे कस्टमरला जे ऑब्जेक्टिव्ह आहे ना ते डिलिव्हर करणं. आता या विषयाशी रिलेटेड एक छोटंसं सांगतो. आमच्या एका कस्टमरने सांगितलं की राहुल आपल्याला काहीतरी करून ना हे AIML केलं पाहिजे. मी म्हटलं का असं म्हणताय तुम्ही? नाही, ते म्हटले की आपण IT साइडचे म्हणजे आम्ही IT साइडचे आहोत. आमचे कस्टमर म्हणजे आमचे जे बिझनेस साइडचे लोक आहेत ते म्हणतात की आम्ही एक कॉन्फरन्स अटेंड केली आणि सगळे AIML बद्दल बोलतायत आणि तुम्ही काहीच IT वाले करत नाही आहात. त्यामुळे तुम्ही खूपच मागासलेले आहात. तर त्यामुळे काहीतरी आपल्याला AIML करायला पाहिजे. म्हणजे मग हे आपल्याला बोलणार नाहीत की आपण टेक्नॉलॉजिकली मागासलेले आहोत. तर अशा पद्धतीने सुद्धा विचार होतो दुर्दैवाने. तर ती भीती आहे. त्यामुळे माझं स्वतःचा इंटरेस्ट आहे की खरी गरज काय आहे, त्या म्हणजे नक्की कुठे ठोकण्याची गरज आहे याच्यावरती काम करणं. तसं मी प्रोजेक्ट मॅनेजमेंट, प्रोसेस मॅनेजमेंट किंवा वेगळ्या याच्यात काम करतो. पण मेन मुख्य म्हणजे कस्टमरची खरी गरज काय आहे ह्याच्यावरती किंवा आपल्या ज्या आत्ताच्या कॉन्टेक्स्ट आपल्या नागरिकांची खरी गरज काय आहे
नीड्स
करू शकतो तेवढं आपण आउटकम देऊ शकतो.
नीड आणि अपॉर्च्युनिटी कोइन्साइड कशी करता येईल ते बघायला पाहिजे.
एक्झॅक्टली.
आय थिंक
थँक्स राहुल.
बहुतेक प्रश्न संपले असावेत.
हो.
तर थँक्स अ लॉट राहुल. वॉज रिअली इंडीड अ ग्रेट प्रेझेंटेशन. द क्रॉस सेक्शन सगळा तू जो काही कव्हर केला होता इट वॉज रिअली अमेझिंग. आणि डेफिनेटली एव्हरीवन हॅज गॉट समथिंग सम ऑफ द अदर थिंग्स आउट ऑफ इट. आणि मेन सिम्पल लँग्वेजमध्ये आणि कमी वेळ असून सुद्धा यू हॅव कव्हर्ड अ लॉट. रिअली थँकफुल.
थँक्यू राहुल. अगदी ओंकार म्हणेल तसं आपण सगळी विड्थ कव्हर केली आणि आपण काही प्रश्नांनाही उत्तर देऊ शकलो. त्याच्यामधून आपल्याला चांगला फीडबॅक झाला आणि नक्कीच यातून पुढे काही काम आणि ग्रुप तयार होऊ शकतो. प्रदीप काही सांगताय?
राहुल मनपूर्वक धन्यवाद. आणि आपण आता इमर्जिंग टेक्नॉलॉजी गटाचे सदस्य झालायत असं मी डिक्लेअर करतो. आम्हाला जशी सुरुवात पाहिजे होती तशी अक्षरशः तशीच्या तशी म्हणजे विश लिस्ट सारखी झालेली आहे. सर्व बाजूनी तुम्ही तो विषय कव्हर केलात, अतिशय इंटरेस्टिंग केलात. त्याच्यात काय होऊ शकतं सांगितलं, त्याच्यातल्या अडचणी सांगितल्यात. खरोखर वी वेर लिटरली होपिंग फॉर समथिंग लाईक दिस टू बिगिन विथ. आपली एक 12 सेमिनारची एक मालिका या वर्षी 2021 मध्ये आपल्याला करायची आहे आणि त्याची उत्कृष्ट सुरुवात आपण करून दिलीत. मनपूर्वक धन्यवाद तुम्हाला, ओंकारला आणि सगळ्या टीमला. वी आर लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड टू नेक्स्ट सेमिनार. थँक्यू व्हेरी मच.
धन्यवाद.
ओंकार, मी सुचवीन की एक स्क्रीनशॉट घ्या. आपल्याला तो डॉक्युमेंटेशन लागतो नंतर. सो टेक्नॉलॉजी ग्रुप आणि एक्सटेंडेड ग्रुप त्यांनी शक्यतो व्हिडिओ ऑन करा. स्पर्धा परीक्षा केंद्राच्या मुलांनी लिव्ह केलं तरी चालेल. सोफिया, प्रिया, अनामिका तुम्ही गेलात तरी चालेल. आणि टेक्नॉलॉजी ग्रुपच्या लोकांनी ज्यांना शक्य त्यांनी व्हिडिओ ऑन केला तरी स्क्रीनशॉट घेऊया आपण.
डॉक्टर देशुरकर तुम्ही थांबलात तरी चालेल.
हो
जाते. श्रीकांत, शिरीष, छान चांगला ग्रुप आहे. अच्युत पण दिसला आज. सो आय एम व्हेरी हॅपी. आणि राहुल छानच झालं. व्हेरी गुड बिगिनिंग. त्यामुळे या पुढे सगळे सेमिनार्स असेच होतील. यू हॅव सेट अ बार नाउ.
अनफॉर्च्युनेटली माझा व्हिडिओ चालू होत नाही दिसतोय. काहीतरी प्रॉब्लेम. एनिवे
काय झालं ओंकार?
काय माहिती. चालेल. आधी होता, आता त्यातला प्रॉब्लेम दिसतो. ठीक आहे.
अजित, सागर, ठीक आहे, जेवढे आहेत तेवढे.
चालेल. रेडी घेऊ कोणाच तरी.
Yes.
ठीक आहे, सागर.
हा, एक मिनिट, कोणाच तरी हालतोय तो आला.
सागर पण आहे. गुड. आणि ऑडियन्स खूपच स्ट्रॉंग होता, म्हणजे दे आर ऑल स्टॅलवर्ड्स इन देअर ओन वे.
हो. यू ओके, डन.
ठीक आहे.
थँक्यू.
थँक्यू.